Welcome back to my channel, and let me ask you something right away. Are you absolutely certain you understand who truly stands with whom in WWE, or where the real battle lines are drawn? Because if you think you have it all figured out, what unfolded backstage on Monday Night Raw just proved how wrong every assumption can be. The WWE Universe witnessed one of the most shocking, least predictable alliances ever seen, an alliance so unlikely that it instantly sent shockwaves through fans, locker rooms, and social media alike. The so-called werewolf has returned to the scene, but the identity of the man he chose to stand beside has left the wrestling world in total disbelief. Jacob Fatu is back, and his return was anything but quiet or subtle. He did not come alone, and he did not come to make friends in the traditional sense. Instead, he aligned himself with the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, and together they unleashed a ruthless, decisive assault on Drew McIntyre that no one saw coming. If you are still trying to process what you heard, you are not alone, because this moment has already become one of the most talked about segments in recent WWE history. This is the kind of moment that rewrites narratives and forces everyone to rethink the future, so make sure you stay locked in for this full breakdown, because every detail matters as we move closer to the Royal Rumble. Now let's take a deep dive back into the chaos of Monday Night Raw on December 22, 2025, a night that was supposed to be another step forward on the road to the Royal Rumble, but instead veered sharply into something darker, more dangerous, and far more unpredictable than anyone expected. Coming into the night, most people believed the focus would remain squarely on Cody Rhodes and his ongoing war with Drew McIntyre, the self-proclaimed Scottish warrior who has been tearing through the roster with a level of aggression that borders on obsession. For weeks, McIntyre has made it his mission to dismantle Cody both physically and mentally, insisting that the American Nightmare is living off a myth rather than true toughness, and claiming that when winter truly sets in, Cody simply does not have what it takes to endure. Expectations were high for more mind games, more confrontations, and perhaps even another violent encounter between the two. What nobody anticipated, not the fans, not the commentators, and seemingly not even the wrestlers themselves, was that the most dangerous wild card associated with the bloodline would be the one to tip the scales in this bitter rivalry. The night began with Drew McIntyre in a particularly destructive mood, storming through the arena with the confidence of a man who believes he is untouchable. His fixation on ending Cody Rhodes' story once and for all has grown more intense with each passing week. In his mind, Cody represents a false hero, someone propped up by legacy and fan support rather than true, ruthless survival instincts. McIntyre has repeatedly stated that he thrives in hardship, that he is built for cold nights, brutal fights, and unforgiving environments, and he sees Cody as someone who would crumble under that same pressure. As the show progressed, that obsession led McIntyre away from the ring and into the shadows backstage, where the bright lights and rules of competition fade away and only raw violence remains. Behind the scenes, the situation quickly became alarming for Cody Rhodes. In the loading dock area, surrounded by steel equipment, massive production trucks, and unforgiving concrete, McIntyre cornered him like a predator trapping its prey. This was not a scheduled match, not an exchange of words, and not even a brawl between equals. It was a full-scale assault. McIntyre used the environment to his advantage, slamming Cody into hard surfaces, hurling him against trucks, and treating him less like a fellow competitor and more like an object to be destroyed. Each impact echoed through the backstage area, underscoring just how vulnerable Cody was in that moment. Despite the punishment, Cody refused to stay down. He fought back with every ounce of heart and determination he had, throwing strikes, trying to create space, and desperately looking for an opening. However, the size, power, and fury of McIntyre felt overwhelming. The Scottish warrior looked unstoppable, fueled by rage and a belief that this was his moment to finally erase Cody Rhodes from the picture. The turning point came when McIntyre grabbed hold of a steel pipe, a weapon that transformed an already dangerous situation into something truly terrifying. With that pipe in his hands, the intent was clear. This was no longer about sending a message or proving dominance, this was about ending Cody's road altogether and potentially putting him on the injured list for good. As McIntyre raised the pipe high, the scene felt final, as if the American Nightmare was seconds away from being silenced. Then, in a moment that will be replayed for years, everything changed. A deep, feral roar cut through the noise of the loading dock, sending a chill through the air. Before McIntyre or Cody could fully react, a blur of motion exploded into the frame. Jacob Fatu launched himself from atop a production crate with terrifying speed and precision, driving a devastating super kick into McIntyre that sent the steel pipe flying from his grasp. The impact was sudden and violent, instantly shifting the balance of power. McIntyre staggered backward, shock written all over his face as he tried to comprehend what had just happened. Standing before him was Jacob Fatu, the same man known for his brutality, unpredictability, and deep ties to the bloodline, now staring him down with cold intensity. The shock did not end there. For a split second, it seemed possible that Fatu might turn his attention to Cody as well, that this was simply chaos for the sake of chaos. Instead, Jacob Fatu did something no one expected. He glanced at Cody Rhodes, gave him a brief, deliberate nod, and then refocused entirely on Drew McIntyre. That single gesture spoke volumes and instantly ignited endless speculation. What followed was a relentless display of violence that felt almost orchestrated despite its spontaneity. Cody, realizing that he had just been given the most unlikely lifeline imaginable, pulled himself back to his feet. Side by side, Cody Rhodes and Jacob Fatu unleashed a merciless assault on McIntyre. Fatu showcased his raw power, lifting McIntyre and driving him down with a crushing Samoan drop onto the concrete floor, the sound of the impact echoing painfully throughout the area. Cody added his own offense, striking with renewed energy, fueled by adrenaline and disbelief. In that moment, old assumptions no longer mattered. Alliances, rivalries, and expectations were thrown out the window as these two men stood united, if only briefly, in their shared objective to neutralize Drew McIntyre. The scene ended with McIntyre laid out, battered and stunned, while Cody and Fatu stood over the wreckage, leaving the WWE Universe with more questions than answers. This alliance, if it can even be called that, instantly became the biggest mystery in WWE. Why did Jacob Fatu choose to intervene? Was it an act of respect toward Cody Rhodes, a recognition of shared resilience and fighting spirit, or was it simply Fatu embracing his role as a force of chaos, attacking whoever happened to be in his path at that moment? And perhaps most importantly, what does this mean for Drew McIntyre moving forward? Can someone as proud and dangerous as McIntyre recover mentally and physically from such a humiliating and brutal ambush, especially with the Royal Rumble looming on the horizon? The fallout from this moment is only just beginning, and its implications could reshape the landscape of WWE in the weeks to come. As fans, all we can do now is analyze, speculate, and wait to see how these three men respond when the dust finally settles. Make sure you share your thoughts, because every theory adds to the conversation, and stay tuned for more updates, breakdowns, and highlights as this wild road to the Royal Rumble continues to unfold. The aftermath of that explosive backstage confrontation did not simply fade away once the cameras cut elsewhere, because the energy from that moment lingered throughout the rest of the night and into the conversations that followed. Word spread quickly through the locker room, and you could almost feel the uncertainty ripple through everyone watching. Wrestlers who thought they understood the current power structure suddenly realized that the ground beneath them was far less stable than they believed. Jacob Fatu's presence alone is enough to shift momentum, but his choice to intervene on behalf of Cody Rhodes, even indirectly, created a ripple effect that cannot be ignored. This was not just a surprise return or a shocking save, it was a statement that the rules people assumed were in place no longer apply. As Raw continued, commentators struggled to put into words what they had just witnessed, replaying the footage again and again, each angle raising new questions. The nod from Fatu to Cody became a focal point, dissected frame by frame, with analysts debating whether it signified mutual respect, a temporary alignment of interests, or something much more calculated. Cody himself appeared later in the night visibly shaken but resolute, his expression reflecting a mix of pain, gratitude, and determination. He did not offer immediate explanations, nor did he attempt to claim credit for what happened. Instead, his silence spoke volumes, suggesting that even he was still processing the implications of what that moment might mean for his journey. Meanwhile, Drew McIntyre's absence after the attack only added fuel to the fire. Medical staff were shown checking on him, and the image of the once dominant Scottish warrior being helped away stood in stark contrast to the unstoppable force he had presented himself as for weeks. For a man who prides himself on strength, endurance, and intimidation, being taken down in such a sudden and public way struck at the core of his identity. Speculation immediately turned toward how McIntyre would respond. Would this setback push him into an even darker, more dangerous mindset, or would it force him to reassess his approach entirely? History suggests that Drew McIntyre does not take humiliation lightly, and if anything, this could make him more volatile than ever. At the same time, the looming presence of the Royal Rumble casts a long shadow over all of this. The Rumble is the one night where alliances can form and shatter in seconds, where chaos is not just expected but celebrated. Jacob Fatu's actions may have been a preview of the kind of unpredictability that event thrives on. If he is willing to step into an ongoing feud without warning, what might he do in a match designed around surprise and survival? Fans have already begun to wonder whether this encounter was a one-time collision or the first chapter of a much larger story. Could Cody Rhodes and Jacob Fatu find themselves on the same side again, or was this simply a fleeting intersection of paths that will soon turn into conflict? The idea of Cody navigating the road to WrestleMania with someone as dangerous and uncontrollable as Fatu orbiting his story adds a layer of tension that makes every appearance feel must-see. There is also the broader question of the bloodline's influence and how Jacob Fatu's independent actions might impact that legacy. Known as one of the most feared enforcers associated with that dynasty, Fatu stepping outside of expected loyalties suggests a shift in priorities, or perhaps a personal agenda that has yet to be revealed. WWE thrives on moments that blur the line between order and chaos, and this was one of those rare instances where even seasoned fans felt genuinely unsure of what would come next. As the road to the Royal Rumble continues, every interaction between these men will be scrutinized, every promo analyzed for hidden meaning, and every match viewed through the lens of what might explode backstage once again. One thing is certain: the events of this night have changed the landscape, and there is no going back to how things were before. The American Nightmare survived an assault that could have ended his momentum, the Scottish Warrior suffered a humbling defeat outside the ring, and the Werewolf reminded everyone why his name alone inspires fear and fascination. Whatever happens next, the WWE Universe is strapped in for a ride filled with uncertainty, intensity, and the kind of storytelling that keeps fans talking long after the show goes off the air.